In this video, we will show you how to replace your distributor seal kit on this Honda Accord with a 2.2-liter engine. These will be located along the passenger side of your engine. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. We're going to be working around the distributor, so you want to make sure that your engine is cool to the touch. You don't want to burn yourself. Let's start by removing the distributor cap from the distributor itself. To do this, you'll find that you have three 8mm headed mounting bolts. Two of them are out in the open, the other one's down along the backside there. We'll make our way down here and access the hardest one first. Got my 8mm on a semi-long extension. Now that we have that bolt out of there, we'll continue on up along here and make our way down. There we are. Leave that right in there. We'll lift this up, carefully set it aside. Now that we have the cap off, we have a clear view of our distributor rotor right here. Let's go ahead and carefully remove this. To remove your distributor rotor, you'll find that you have one Phillips head mounting screw inside this area, opposite to where the electrode would be located. Let's use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove this. Use a magnet to grab onto that. Careful not to drop it. Now we can take hold of that rotor and remove it from the distributor. Just give it a little wiggle. Now we can remove this protective cover. The next thing we have to do is mark along the top of the distributor in comparison to the engine here. We want to make sure when we go to reinstall the distributor, everything will be in the exact same location. If this is twisted in some way, it's going to affect the timing and the runnability of your vehicle. Now this is where I typically like to make my marks, up along the top. You can do this with a hammer and chisel if you want, or just a marker, just as long as that marker doesn't wash off while you do your job. We have a pretty clear marking here. Now it's time to dislodge the wiring harnesses from each other here. You'll find that you have a locking tab for each of these. You want to make sure you squeeze that in, and then you should be able to separate this. As for the connector that's towards the passenger side, you want to squeeze it in, and then you should be able to lift up on the wiring. A quick inspection of both sides of the wiring for corrosion. We'll set that wiring harness aside. Now for this next one, when you squeeze on that locking connector, you want to actually pull the rest down. This top portion's held to the bracket. We're still going to give it that close inspection, of course. And now we'll separate the wiring harness from the bracket. Now up along the top of this wire connector, you're going to find another locking tab. For this one though, you don't want to squeeze it, you want to carefully pull it away. After that, you can lift that up and out of place. Let's have a look down in this area now. You can see another Phillips head screw. We're going to remove that Phillips head screw so we can remove this bracket. If you need to, you can flex the bracket. My Phillips head on here. Separate the bracket. Now we can start removing the distributor. For this, you'll find that you have three mounting bolts holding it in place. One down here on the lower forward corner, right up along the top, then the next one's just down along the back side there. Just tuck this out of the way for now. Now we can make our way to that 12mm mounting bolt along the back side first. Let's get this bottom one down here. Now it's time to remove our distributor from the engine. Let's get this over to the bench. Now over on the bench, let's have a look at the inboard side. This is the portion that goes into the engine. We want to make sure that we make a clear marking on this as well. We'll mark this part of the adapter and then also down around the distributor as well. Give it a quick wipe in case there's any oil on this area. It's pretty close. Now that we've done that, we'll be removing this portion that comes around. Little metal clip. Just carefully pop that out of place. We will be reusing this. Now once you have that out of place, the next thing you want to do is have a look in this area. You're going to have a mounting pin that makes its way all the way through to the far side. We're just going to want to press it right on through. Now we can take hold of this, lift that out of position as well. Typically there's going to be a seal right here. Just pop that right out of place. Now right along this area is one of the seals that we're going to be replacing. You can go ahead and pop that out now, clean up the area, give it an inspection, but we are not going to put in the new seal yet because we don't want any miscellaneous debris getting on there. Now let's have a look at the other side. Now on this forward side here, we can remove our gasket that comes across. A quick inspection of that gasket. Make sure it's soft and pliable, not torn, worn, or damaged. We'll be reusing this as well. Before we start taking any of this apart, it's important to make sure that you mark the shaft area here, because once you do pull this apart, it's probable that this is going to want to spin on you. We want to make sure we have it in the same position. So we'll just make a marking pretty much anywhere you want. Just make sure it is properly aligned. Got a marking here. We'll go right about there. If you're off by 180 degrees, you're going to have a running issue. Your vehicle is probably not even going to start, to be honest. Now, along this side of the distributor, we're going to remove our wiring harnesses that come across the top of the ignition module. Before you start removing these, make sure you know exactly where each wire goes. We have our blue colored wire, which goes to this far end. Next one in is the green. After that, we have a black with a white tracer. And then moving towards what would be the rear here, we're going to have a yellow with what looks like it's a blue or a green tracer. With that said, we'll start popping these out of place. As you remove them, you just want to give them a quick inspection, as you know. If you need to grab it with pliers, just be extremely careful. There's that one. Let's separate this area as well. Just use a small prying device. You can pull that up. We'll pull this wiring harness out of here. Now let's move into this area. We have two Phillips head screws. Take hold of this, pull it off to the side. Now we'll continue on with 3 more Phillips head screws. Before you start removing these screws, it's important to make sure that you make a marking. We have one of the Phillips head screws here, one over here, and one down there. Start getting these out of here. Now at this point, we should be able to take hold of this area and lift it up and away. Start pulling that up. We do have a little wiring harness area here. We're going to want to slide that through there. And now we can gain access to our seal. To remove this, we're just going to use an angled pick. But when we use this, we want to be extremely careful not to cause any damage to the aluminum of the distributor. We only want to grab onto that seal and gently pry it out of place. Just trying to be careful here. There it is, friend. Once you have the seal out of there, the next thing that you need to do is clean and inspect that mounting point. Make sure you did not create any markings when you were removing that seal. Just use a clean rag for that. A thorough inspection, of course. And now we can prepare to install our new seal. Now let's have a quick look at our seal. We have the original seal that we had removed from the distributor and our two brand new seals. Now, if you were to look closely at these, you're going to find that they are different. One of them inverts a little bit towards the center, and the other one doesn't. On our application, we can tell that we do not need the one that's inverted, so we'll go ahead and set that aside, and we'll continue with the proper seal. Let's prepare the brand new seal for installation. Before you install this, have a look along the back side. You can see that you have a small spring that makes its way all the way around the seal. We want to make sure we put a thin amount of petroleum jelly in there. That'll hold that spring in so we can continue on with the seal. Slide it right in. Just work our way all the way around. Now we'll carefully place the seal down into the distributor, and we're going to have to use something that'll tap directly along the outer aspect of the seal. We don't want to hit along the center there and cause any damage. To drive this on here, we'll use the backside of a 1/2-inch drive extension. Just tap that right in. It's getting close. There we go. Now we'll just feel inside this area to make sure it's completely bottomed out. Now let's take our yellow wire with the blue tracer. We're going to bring it up and through this area. Now we can start sliding this down into the proper position. We want the shaft to slide straight on through that seal. We'll be very careful not to cause any damage to it. Continue on sliding this down. Just going to press it in. We want to double check our markings here to make sure we're properly aligned. Each and every one of the wires is up where it needs to be. Now we can continue on with our 3 mounting bolts. We'll start each of these in by hand, and then you can snug them up. Right there is bottomed out. Just make sure that's nice and tight. Same thing for all. Start reconnecting our wires now. The yellow with the blue tracer will come down along this area. Slide that right on there. As you press it on, you want to make sure that it's properly secured. After that, we'll also make sure that the wiring is secured along this area here. Just slides right into that groove. We'll help it through. We'll continue on with the other wires now. We'll do the black with the white tracer. Now it's time for the green wire. Make sure it's on there. And now we have our blue wire on the far end here. Get the wiring harness in place. We'll make sure we peen this over. You can use a screwdriver, pliers, whatever you need. Let's get this in place. Once again, starting in each one of the mounting bolts by hand here. This one's difficult to get in. Get the other one in there. If you have a hard time reaching, you could use a screwdriver to start it in. You just want to be careful not to cross thread it. Now that we have both of those screws started in, the next thing we'll do is make our adjustment before we tighten them. Now when we do so, you want to pay attention to this portion right here on the shaft itself. This will be coming spinning around, and it comes right along this area, so you need to make sure you have enough clearance. Along the backside, we'll take hold of the small adapter, and you should be able to give it a twist. Now, as this area comes around, we're going to let it touch, and now we'll have to go ahead and give this a little tug away, align those two areas carefully, and at this point, we'll continue on to creating a clearance in this area. I'm just going to use this small adapter, carefully pull this away. Slide it in between. This will create a small clearance for us, and we can continue on tightening each one of those two Phillips head screws. You want to make sure these are nice and tight. Double check to make sure that's secure. We'll remove our adapter. Now the next thing we want to do is attempt to spin this in both directions to confirm that we have proper clearance. If it feels as though it hits in any way, you need to make an adjustment. That feels good. Now that we have that back together, the next thing we want to do is make sure that our shaft is in the proper positioning. We'll just have a look for our markings here. I can see my marking clearly on that plate. We're going to have to turn this one direction or the other. Oh, there's my marking right there. We'll get that aligned. Make our way to the backside. Along the backside here, we'll continue on with our thrust washer. Slide that right into place. Now we have our adapter. We want to pay attention for our marking. We'll have that aligned. Once you have that aligned, you should be able to slide through your mounting pin here. Now it's time for the locking clip for this. You just want to go ahead and put it inside of the groove that makes its way all the way around that adapter. That's going to hold in the pin. You cannot forget to put this in. Slide this over here. Use a small pick to help guide it in. There we are. Double check all the way around to ensure that it's properly secured. Now we can install our new O-ring gasket. For this, it's going to fit inside this groove all the way down along the base of the distributor. This is the area that's going to go in the engine. You want to make sure you have a good seal here. Stretch that right over that. At this point, we'll continue with a little bit of petroleum jelly along each one of these areas. Just go right around that brand new O-ring. I'm just going to come right along this clip as well. Back over at the engine, before we install the distributor, it's important to make sure that you clean up the mounting area. You can see that we do have a little bit of oil in this area. We'll give it a quick wipe. An inspection to make sure there's no damage. While we're in this area, we might as well also inspect each one of our mounting ports for those mounting bolts. Assuming those look good, we'll prepare for installation. All right, let's get ready to install that distributor into the vehicle here. We'll just take this, gently twist it as necessary to guide it into position. Watch out for our wires. Press it right in. Continue on with your 3 mounting bolts holding this to the engine. We're going to start in each of them before we tighten any of them. Now, before you go ahead and tighten any of these, you need to make sure you make your adjustment. We already have our marking up along the top area here, so we'll make sure that that's properly aligned. If you're off by even a little bit, it's going to change the timing of your spark, and you find you'll have a running condition. Looks good right there. Once you feel as though you have it properly aligned, go ahead and snug them up and torque each one of these bolts to 16 foot-pounds. Double check real quick before I go too far. That looks good. Let's make our way to the side here. We're going to re-secure our mounting bracket for our wiring harnesses. We'll get that in place, start in our Phillips head mounting screw, and snug it up. There we are. I want to be careful not to drop this bolt. It's very small. Now it's time for our electrical connectors. Just press this right on here. Let's get this one on here as well. Here we are. Now we can install our distributor gasket. Slide that on here. Just get it aligned, press it in. Double check to make sure it's seated all the way around. You don't want that falling out on you. We'll continue on to this plastic portion. Just slide that right in there. Let's prepare to install our distributor rotor. When you go to install this, you want to make sure you have it in the proper orientation. If you were to look inside the port along the backside, you'll find that you have a circular port, but it does have a flat area. We want to make sure that we align that with the shaft properly, and then we'll continue on with our mounting screw. Should want to press right on. For our mounting screw, that's going to come through the side of this and screw right in there without dropping it. There we go. Double check to make sure it's not cross-threading. You don't want to cause any damage. Okay, we've got that bottomed out. Just make sure it's nice and tight. Now it's time to reinstall the distributor cap. We'll take this and get it in position, ensuring that we did not twist any of our spark plug wires. Start in each of your 8mm headed mounting bolts and snug them up. Backside one there. Okay, let's snug them up. Right there is bottomed out. Just take it a little bit further. Do the same to all. Trying to get this on there. Take hold of your distributor cap, ensure that it's completely sealed all the way around. Now that we have everything back together, Let's just quickly check each one of our wires to ensure that they're properly installed on the distributor cap. It's possible that they came loose, in which case you're going to have a running condition. We'll also ensure that the wires are properly mounted. You can see that this one came off down along the bottom here. Okay friend, we finished our job. Now at this point, what you need to do is go ahead and start up the vehicle. Let it run for a little while and get up to normal operating temperature. Ensure you have no check engine light, no running condition. Aside from that, you definitely do want to check the timing of your engine. If it feels as though something's not running right, you might have to make an adjustment by loosening up the distributor, give it a little turn one direction or the other, and check that timing.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.